What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast, here today for episode 7. Not too much to talk about this week, but we will preview Minnesota and get you guys rolling here on iTunes and YouTube. Welcome back to the show. Evan, how are you doing today, my man?
Just wonderful. How are you?
Doing really good. And guys, let's cut the music here. Let's fade it out. Let's turn that down. We got something really important we need to discuss. Something we haven't talked about on the show before. Something that needs to be made clear before we go any further. And today is Evan's birthday. Evan, happy birthday, my man. We just wanted to say happy birthday and recognize that before we got going here on the show. Mr. Bucs football, happy birthday, my dude.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it.
I apologize. I didn't say anything earlier today. I had known all day, and I felt like a jerk. I felt like a jerk because we started recording a little bit late, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, damn, he's going to think I'm the biggest dick because I haven't said happy birthday. I haven't really said anything, and I said, all right, let's roll with it. And so by the time we start the show, we'll make sure we acknowledge it. But happy birthday, Evan. Hope it's a good one, man. Did you guys do anything? Did you go out to dinner or any plans today?
No, I just had a few close relatives over. I got some pretty cool Buck stuff. I got a new hat. I got like a long sleeve Buck shirt. It has and it has it's almost like a jersey almost, but it has it's Deshaun Jackson. So it just says, you know, it's almost just like a jersey. That's
nice.
That's how the design is.
Nice, man. But happy birthday, Evan. If you guys are watching and you are on YouTube, make sure you leave a happy birthday in the comments. And go follow Evan on Instagram at BucsFootball. Help him get to, what's your next milestone on the page at the moment?
17K, but we got a long way to get there. We just hit 16.1. So, and any follower that's listening to this that, you know, has been following, thank you very much. And anybody that hasn't been following, please go ahead and click that follow button. I promise that you will not regret it.
Also, guys, if you haven't already, make sure you follow the official Cannon Fire Podcast Instagram at Cannon Fire Podcast, and you can also find us on Twitter at Cannon Fire Pod. And let's get rolling here. Let's talk some Bucs. A little bit of a slow news week for Tampa Bay coming off of that win against Chicago. Still so sweet. A couple of days later, looking at the stats, how they line up, it's still a good sight to see. 1-0 heading into Minnesota. Some concerns early in the week were some injuries. The players that went down during Sunday's game, Gerald McCoy being one of them, Quan Alexander, as well as Lavonte David. Lavonte David did practice today. Quan Alexander, Gerald McCoy, Brent Grimes, and Chris Baker, were out of practice today. Everyone looks good to start on Sunday. Brent Grimes and Chris Baker were out on illness. Quan Alexander, as you know, went down with a hamstring, and Gerald McCoy had some issues with his ankle. But all of those people should be looking good to go this Sunday against Minnesota, and we're going to need them more than ever as we transition into talking about Minnesota. Got to stop that run game first and foremost. We talked about it before. We'll say it again. Let's jump into the game analysis. Evan, what do you got this week against the Purple People Eaters?
Well, I mean, you know, this is a much tougher opponent than the Chicago Bears. I can guarantee you that. You know, the Chicago Bears are probably one of the worst teams in the NFL. And honestly, I mean, the Vikings aren't great. But, I mean, their strong point, I mean, you know, you mentioned the Purple People Eaters. And that was defense. And that's their strong point right now. You know, their defense is very good. Does not give up many points. Gets turnovers when they need them. They got, you know, a great secondary with Xavier Rhodes and Harrison Smith. Not to mention some other guys like Trey Waynes and you know, linebacker Anthony Barr. That's right, that's the name. And they also got a good D line. So this is gonna, you know, I think it's gonna be a low scoring game. Now, on to the offensive side of the ball for the Vikings, they have, you know, they just like you said, you gotta stop the run, and you know, they have Dalvin Cook, who all Bucs fans should be pretty familiar with pre-draft, and you know, it's a shame that the Bucs couldn't land him, couldn't trade up to get him in the second round. I know that yes, they were considering Cook at pick 19 in the first round, but they didn't think Howard was going to be there. So uh, Howard was definitely the no-brainer, but I do know for a fact that they did indeed try to trade up in the second round in order to draft Dalvin Cook, and it just didn't work out. But everything's gonna be all right. The world's not gonna end because we didn't get Dalvin Cook and he's been playing against the Bucs this Sunday. It's very important to stop the run because the Vikings are very similar to the Bears, quarterback wise. Their quarterback is the greatest. I mean, Sam Bradford, who is didn't play last week in Pittsburgh. Not sure if he's gonna play this week. If he doesn't, then Case Keenum will get the start, and Case Keenum is actually 2-0 against the Buccaneers. And if Keenum would play and beat the Bucs on Sunday, he would have the most wins against Jameis Winston out of any quarterback in the NFL. So it's just
What a stat.
something to look at. Huh?
What a stat. I mean, it's just, I don't know, Case Keenum, the last guy you would expect, It's like Jameis's kryptonite. You know how Marcus Mariota was for Jameis? Marcus Mariota, I'm sorry, Jameis has never beaten Marcus Mariota ever. And it seems like it could be the same situation with Case Keenum. Then again, it's a different football team, different atmosphere for Case Keenum this year. We'll see how he can handle those weapons. But pretty solid job so far by that Minnesota offense, first 2 games of the season. Not looking bad whatsoever. But a thing that I did want to bring up, and a thing that we had talked about a little bit before, was the offense altogether. The offense against Chicago looked like a good offense, bar none. But Tampa Bay, as always, just seems to have trouble finishing drives.
Mm-hmm.
The offense can put points on the board, and a lot of the turnovers that we did have all ended in field goals, putting up 9 points against Chicago off of those turnovers. But when it comes to 40 yards or longer on the drive, I believe that there was a stat that said only 9 points came out of those drives last Sunday. And the offense has a very, very hard time finishing. And if this game were to go higher up in points, if it were to become a shootout, which it very well could be, any given Sunday, anything could happen with these teams, the Tampa Bay offense has to find a way to finish, and it's going to come in the form of Jameis's accuracy on the deep ball. Now, we talked before about it's a process, it's a week-by-week process, but this week is definitely going to prove how that process is going to play out for the rest of the season and how this team can put points on the board for 14 more weeks.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But it's very important for the Buccaneers to finish drives not only with points but with touchdowns. And 7 points, not Nick Folk missing an extra point. That's okay when they're up 23-0. Then it's fine. But it could have came back to bite them. But thankfully it didn't. And honestly, Nick Folk needs to be perfect this week. The Vikings play in very low scoring games. Their kicker's Kai Forbath. He's missed a couple extra points, actually no field goals, but they're going to rely on their kicker as well because of their defense, and their defense doesn't give up much, but their offense also doesn't get much, especially if Case Keenum plays. So it's very important for the Buccaneers to get touchdowns, and also Nick Folk to make his kick. So let's say the Bucs aren't going to score a touchdown every single drive down, but let's say they do it to kick a field goal once. He has to make that field goal. There's no other way around it. You need points, especially against this Vikings defense. You take points any way you can get them. It's just touchdowns are so much more valuable, especially against a team like the Vikings that they're not the best offensively. And if the Buccaneers can come out 14-0, they could really control the whole game and ultimately win. So it's very important for the Buccaneers to finish their drives and to make their kicks. Now, on to the Jameis thing. I don't think it's so much as the deep ball as just protecting the football. He sort of needs to have it like he did last week. He just has to protect the football. That Charles Sims fumble, That can't happen. That kind of stuff can't happen this week. That was in the red zone. The Buccaneers were either going to score a touchdown or kick a field goal, and if that happens this week, they're going to be in trouble. So the biggest thing is Jameis. It's a tough defense, much better than the Bears' defense, much better secondary. They really have no clear weakness on that defense. I mean, there is weak spots, as is with every defense, every team. Really, there's weak spots, but no team's perfect. But there's every unit of that defense is way better than the Bears' unit. So, Jameis needs to protect the football. Running backs need to protect the football. And quite frankly, the receivers have to, they paid Deshaun Jackson a lot of money. Invested a high draft pick on Mike Evans, invested a third-round pick Chris Godwin, invested a first-round pick O.J. Howard. These guys need to get open. There's no other way around it. And the offensive line also has to do their job too. They played well versus Chicago. Now here comes the real test because honestly, Chicago's strongest unit on the defense is their front four, but the Vikings front four with Everson Griffin, Sharif Floyd, guys like that, those guys are going to be able to kind of control the game when you let them. So that's very important for the Bucs to sort of manage the game, sort of play the game like the Kansas City Chiefs do a lot. They don't score many points, but they take advantage of their opportunities. On defense, when the Bucs get a turnover, you have to get points off that turnover. Have to. So that's pretty much basic thoughts on both offense and defense. I think it just comes down to special teams play and protecting the football.
And another thing you had talked about other than protecting the football, and it seems to be a point week in and week out, it'll be discussed, it'll not be talked about for 2 days, and then you'll see another article pop up, but O.J. Howard is really, I'm not going to say he's going to throw a wrench into this offense because it's not like that by any means, but O.J. Howard is really going to have to show his more physical side when it comes to blocking the football because, as we talked about before, Tampa Bay is going to look to strike fast, and one of the biggest things to do early is start up that run game. O.J. Howard is going to play a big role in guarding that edge, and if he does go up the field, it's not going to be anything too crazy. As we know, O.J. Howard not really on pace to break any records his rookie season. That's been established already. And that comes back to before opening up those weapons for Jameis. You've got guys like Deshaun Jackson, you said, being paid a lot of money to step in here and do his job. Mike Evans, if he can come in and have another week like he did against Chicago, it should be A-okay. And Adam Humphries, you brought him up before, didn't shine too much during Chicago, but he's still a guy that can get in there and get the job done. And O.J. Howard is going to really have to focus on blocking and hopefully getting up the field a few times, but not expecting too much from O.J. Howard this week. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, I think I would expect more from Cam Brate, especially because of how they're using Howard. And just like you said, it's pretty apparent how they're using him. He's more of a blocking tight end at this point. But as he gets more comfortable, he'll be more of a receiving threat. But I thought the tight ends did an excellent job blocking. If the Buccaneers can, and this all comes back to Deshaun Jackson and Mike Evans getting open. Mike Evans, you mentioned having a day like he did versus Chicago. It could happen, but I don't think so, just because of how good Xavier Rhodes is. And quite frankly, Deshaun Jackson could have some success. I'm not going to lie, because Trey Waynes isn't that great, but it still relies on the offensive line. And the thing that helps the offensive line is keeping those tight ends back. And they did a really good job of that last week. So if Deshaun Jackson and Mike Evans can get open consistently and the Buccaneers can keep a 2 tight end set to block, maybe you can go like no running back and put Humphries in slot with Evans and Jackson on the outside and Brate and Howard in pass protection, and Jameis gets enough time, he should be able to have some success. But yeah, it's he also needs to make the right decision and needs to be accurate. So it relies on really everybody on the offense has to do their job correctly. Which is every week, but a bad team against a bad team like the Bears, you can make up for a mistake. A decent to good team like the Vikings is going to make you pay for that mistake. So that's the most important thing.
And flipping over to the defensive side of the ball, we had talked about it before, we'll say it again. Stopping the run game early, containing Dalvin Cook is going to be very, very important. That's going to be priority number one coming out in the first half of the football game, is shutting down Dalvin Cook and opening up for the Tampa Bay secondary to do some work. Now, a matchup that I'm very, very excited to see, and a matchup that not a lot of people have taken a look at simply because Quan Alexander and Levante David should be good to play on Sunday. I'm excited to see how Kendall Beckwith can play against Dalvin Cook. As we know, he did finish in his first NFL game 5 solo tackles, 2 tackles for a loss, and a pass defended. And Dalvin Cook has been pretty blockbuster his first 2 games out for Minnesota. Kendall Beckwith matching up with Dalvin Cook and helping suppress that run game. That's a matchup I'm really, really excited to see.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And I mean, Kendall Beckwith got to play good. He played pretty good in Chicago. To me, he's got to play better because I think that Dalvin Cook is a bit better than Jordan Howard. I love Jordan Howard as a back, but, I know you can say, well, Dalvin's a rookie and stuff like that. How can you say that? I'm just looking at tape, and, the Bucs shut down the run. If they shut down the run like they did this week against Cook, especially if Keenum plays, I still think it'll be a lower scoring game. The Buccaneers won't score 29 just because the Vikings defense won't let them score 29. But I could definitely see the Bucs winning by about 10 points or so, maybe like something like a 17-7 or something if they stop the run like they did. However, it's really tough to do that consistently week after week. To only hold a team to about 20 rushing yards, so very, very difficult to do.
Very difficult to do. And another matchup that people were talking about was between Vikings wide receiver Adam Thielen and Buccaneers cornerback Brent Grimes. Thielen and Grimes are a pair of former undrafted free agents who have crafted very good NFL careers thus far. Grimes has been among the league's best cornerbacks for years, and he led the league in passes, defense with 24 in his first season as a Buccaneer in 2016. And if Grimes is matched up against Thielen, he'll give up about 6 inches in height differential, but he routinely makes up for that with his amazing athleticism and leaping ability. And that's another matchup that people are discussing. See, I got a lot of saliva built up in my mouth. I hate to say that so close to the mic, but all this water is getting to me. Just a matchup a lot of people are excited to see. Brent Grimes, his first tougher challenge if he does end up getting matched up against Thielen. How are you feeling about the Bucs secondary and even just this cornerback position heading into Sunday?
I think they got to step up. I think they played decent, but they have to be better because really the Vikings receivers are much, much, much better than the Bears. Bears receivers. Let's just say that the Vikings receivers, Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, and even Kyle Rudolph at tight end, they're not going to drop the ball 3 times in a row. I guarantee you that 3 different receivers will not drop the ball 3 times in a row in that game. So they need to be better. Now, I thought Grimes played an all right game. I think that receivers are just making very good catches against them. I mean, he contested pretty much every ball. It's just the receivers were making some pretty good plays. So, yeah, and I think it's important for Hargreaves to rebound a bit. I didn't think he played his best game. I think he'll play better, but it's definitely a challenge because I think that they're going to put Grimes on Diggs mostly, and I think Thielen is going to be on Hargreaves. And like I said, to me, it all depends on who is playing quarterback. This game could be won or lost for the Buccaneers, depending on who is playing quarterback. If Case Keenum plays, I don't know how much of a factor Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen are. I would look for Kyle Rudolph to be more of a factor. If Case Keenum would play, if Sam Bradford would play, then I think that, yeah, Sam Bradford's going to target him. He has chemistry with him, and they showed that on Monday Night Football against the Saints week 1. I mean, it was honestly a beautiful game by Bradford, throwing the ball all over the yard, and right to Thielen, bombs to Thielen, right on the money. Diggs made some great plays, so the Buccaneers definitely have to be better. They played good, but hopefully, and honestly, the secondary will get a boost because T.J. Ward will be able to know probably about 80% of the playbook by then, and then by week 4 he probably should know all of it. So he'll play more, and that'll definitely help.
And taking a look here at Minnesota, what we'll do, we'll talk final scores, and then we'll do offensive and defensive MVP. If you want to do an honorable mention, we can. Actually, you know what? We'll do honorable mentions for after the game, like the post-game coverage. That sound good?
Yep.
Okay, just a little bit of on-the-spot planning there. Probably should have done that before the show, but you know what I mean? We do what we can. And we are talking final scores. You talked about containing the run, and you talked about looking for a way to open up early and shut down Dalvin Cook. That's the biggest priority, as we brought up before. And if that can be done, if Dalvin Cook can be shut down and held to 20 yards, just like Chicago last week, 20 yards give or take. I'm not saying they got to hold him to 20 or less, because that may or may not happen. But if the Buccaneers can come out and create some space to hopefully just move the ball around. I'm not saying it's got to be a shootout. We both said this Bucs team is not going to score 29 points this Sunday. The Vikings are not going to let them. It's going to be relatively low scoring, relatively close, at least closer than Chicago. But for a final score, I'm looking at 17-7. If this team can fire on all cylinders and get their jobs done, worst case scenario, it's probably going to come down to maybe 21-17. But in a comfortable situation, I'm saying 17-7 for my final score.
So that sounds pretty good, honestly. I think that would, to me, it all depends on who plays at quarterback. I mean, I think that is huge because there's such a difference between Sam Bradford and Case Keenum. The Vikings offense with Sam Bradford is the one that put up, over 30 points. Yes, it was against the Saints defense, but I mean, still, they look good. The Case Keenum-led Vikings were the ones that put up 9 points in Pittsburgh. So I'll give 2 score predictions here. If Bradford plays 21-20 Bucs with Nick Folk nailing a field goal within the final minute. If Keenum plays, I'm going to say 20 to Bucs. I think that the Bucs will be able to take more advantage of Case Keenum than they would of Sam Bradford. Sam Bradford always been known to protect the football. And plus with Sam Bradford, they'll be throwing the ball more. And I feel like, the Bucs' best bet is to try and stop the run with Dalvin Cook by using Swaggy Baker, Chris Baker, and along with guys like Will Golston and them linebackers. You could tell them linebackers have speed because when Chicago tried to spread the run out, when they tried to go to the outside, it got closed real fast. That did not work for Chicago, and I guarantee you though. You won't see Minnesota do that as much as Chicago did because Minnesota's watching the same film that we all are, and they saw what the Bucs did. So, it's going to be a close game no matter what. It's going to be a low-scoring game. But, it's definitely going to be interesting. Did you want to give your offensive and defensive MVPs?
Yeah, we'll do offensive and defensive MVP really quick. I will start with defense. Just because it's someone that I would like to see come up big. It's a rookie year for him. Kendall Beckwith. I'd really like to see him have a good day. And I think that if they can find a way to stop Dalvin Cook, Kendall Beckwith will be all about it. He'll find his position. He'll get exactly where he needs to be. And he'll be in Dalvin Cook's face not every day because, we have other games to play. But all day long, he'll be in his face, knocking on his door of the Minnesota offense. Kendall Beckwith is my defensive MVP. And looking at offensive, somebody that should have a big game, utilize the run correctly. I think Jacquizz Rodgers could really come out and shine a lot more than he did week 1. I would like to see Jacquizz Rodgers at least get over 100 yards, maybe a pair of touchdowns on the day. Maybe a pair if we're lucky. But regardless, I'd like to see that run utilized, and I'd like to see Jacquizz Rodgers figure out this Minnesota defense, find a lot of holes, and have a great day on the ground for the Tampa Bay offense. Now, who are your MVPs? I'm excited to hear this one.
Well, first thing I want to touch on is, did you think Jacquizz Rodgers had a bad day running the football on Sunday?
I don't think he had a bad day, but I think he could have a better day.
I don't know. I think that's all you're pretty much going to get out of Jaquiz Rogers, unless it's against a bad run defense like the San Francisco 49ers last season. I thought Quiz ran good. He ran hard, and his wife actually just tweeted out today that you're talking about that illness. Jaquiz Rogers played that game on Sunday with the flu. So that's definitely something there. And that's kind of concerning how fast that's spreading through the Bucs locker room. And if that got to Swaggy Baker, if that got to Brent Grimes, if that got to anybody else,
Well, now we got to cut him. Now that you bring that up, is he's bringing the flu into the locker room, we got to cut him. He's got to go. We got to bring somebody up from the practice squad. He's got to go.
Yeah. Quan Alexander had an illness, but luckily the flu is not as bad as MRSA. Or else this could get bad. But luckily I think they'll all be better by next week, and hopefully they'll all be better by next week. But to move into my MVPs, I'll tell you, this one was tougher because of how close of a game this is going to be. And I'm going to go defensive first, just because you did. I want to keep that flow going. My defensive MVP is a linebacker, and he is from the LSU, but his name's not Kendall Beckwith. Quan Alexander. I think that Quan has a big game this week. Not really. I don't know if he has a pick, because I think that if Keenum plays, he's going to want to run the ball. If Bradford plays, I think he's going to noted, try to avoid the spots where Quan is because of how explosive he can be.
Do you think that Quan's going to be playing with a chip on his shoulder?
Yeah, but I think he's going to be playing with a chip on his shoulder all season.
You're right.
Just because how he felt snubbed for the Pro Bowl. His tweets during the off season when he wasn't put on NFL Network as one of the top up and coming linebackers, but some other guys who he was way better than were. So I think he has a chip on his shoulder every game. So I think Quan has a big day. I think he'll get double-digit tackles here, and I think he'll end up getting 1 or 2 sacks.
All right.
Now, one of my offensive VP, he's great. But it's also because who he's going to be going up against is not good. Last week, Martavis Bryant, Steelers wide receiver, who I actually have on my fantasy team, very happy, caught a touchdown, caught a couple other balls against Vikings cornerback Trey Waynes. And they said, looking at film, that Bryant could have caught 3 to 4 more deep balls if Roethlisberger would have hit him, because he was burning Waynes all day. And that's why my offensive MVP is going to be Deshaun Jackson. I think that Jackson is going to have a big day. I think he'll end up getting his first touchdown as a Buccaneer this game. I think that it'll probably be, on like a quick slant or so, unless he burns Waynes again. But if Jameis gets timed by this offensive line, I think he'll be able to hit Jackson at least once for a touchdown. Mike Evans is going to bring a lot of attention. If it's Xavier Rhodes is going to be covering him, but Trey Waynes I just don't think he's that good. You look at film, and Martavis Bryant absolutely destroyed him. So I would expect Deshaun Jackson to have a big day. I think he gets over 100 yards. Because like I said, the Minnesota defense still is good. So if Deshaun Jackson burns him once, I doubt they're going to let him burn him again. So he'll get close to 100 yards, and I think he'll have a touchdown. So I think Bucs walk out with a win. Deshaun Jackson, Quan Alexander are big days.
All right. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Your pregame analysis against the Minnesota Vikings coming up this Sunday. Your final score predictions and offensive and defensive MVPs. And I said at the beginning of the show, and I feel bad that I said it now, I said it was a slow week in Bucs news. I take that back. We do have a pair of stories here for you guys as we prepare to close out the show. The first tidbit of news, something that came up just yesterday, the Bucs add quarterback Rivers to the practice squad. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers announced a pair of changes to their practice squad on Tuesday of this week, but they didn't change the overall makeup of that 11-man crew. Instead, the team signed one undrafted rookie cornerback and released another, adding former Green Bay Packer David Rivers and releasing Jonathan Moxey. Rivers, who is 6 foot, 185 pounds, played his college football at Youngstown State before signing with the Packers following the 2017 NFL Draft. Green Bay released Rivers in June after an injury had kept him off the field for most of the team's spring practices. Rivers did get to go to an NFL training camp, however, he was picked up by the New York Jets in late July. He appeared in 3 of the Jets' 4 preseason games, contributing 2 tackles and 2 passes defensed. On the other hand, Moxie signed with the Buccaneers this past spring out of Boise State. He was released in the league-wide roster cuts to 53 in early September, but then immediately re-signed to the practice squads, and the Buccaneers have released him this week. So a little bit of depth on the practice squad, some change-ups, but nothing major. But looking good for the cornerback position, and another story that we do have really quick, as I pull it up here. Gerald McCoy and Levante David were among Pro Football, or PFF's top performers. After a convincing victory over the Bears, it shouldn't be surprising that several Buccaneers earned high grades for their performances in Week 2. According to Pro Football Focus, right tackle DeMar Dotson was the team's best player, earning an overall grade of 91. I'm getting a phone call. Let me hang that up really quick. And you had talked about DeMar Dotson before, silently playing one of his best games of his career. Good eye there on you, Evan. Not that I didn't believe you or anything like that, but glad to see that you guys heard it here first before Pro Football Focus. Right tackle DeMar Dotson was the team's best player, earning an overall grade of 91. Linebacker Levante David, who earned a score of 90, and defensive tackle Jared McCoy at 89.6 rounded out the top 3. On 27 pass rush snaps, McCoy earned 7 quarterback pressures. He was also stout against the run, picking up a stop on 11 run plays. Behind him, the Buccaneers allowed Chicago to rush for just 20 yards in Week 2 in Tampa. So a great week for the Bucs, showing up on Pro Football Focus, and this is a team that I'm glad is finally being recognized.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
About time.
Without a doubt, it's good to see the Buccaneers. It's good to see the Buccaneers in the public eye. We had talked about it many, many years ago. It was something that a lot of people just never wanted to bring up. The Bucs were slept on for a very, very long time. Not to say that they played elite-level football, but the Buccaneers are a team that'll make you talk, and Week 2 against Chicago has pretty much shown everybody that the Bucs are a force to be reckoned with this season. We'll see how they do on Sunday against Minnesota, and it should be a pretty good game this Sunday. 17-7 was my final score, and I believe that you had said, what was your final score again?
Well, I put 2. I said if Bradford plays 21-20 Bucs, if Keenum plays 20-13 Bucs. Either way, Bucs win.
Either way, Bucs win. You guys heard it here first. Don't hold us to it because I don't want you to get mad if we do lose. But it should be a good week for us, and hopefully we'll get another victory Monday heading into next week. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, that's just about going to do it for us here on the Cannon Fire Podcast. Evan, one more time, my man, happy birthday. Hope you had a good one. You did pick up some cool Bucs swag, and I'm happy to hear it. And ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, make sure you hit subscribe and thumbs up on YouTube, as well as subscribe on iTunes if available. Have a good rest of your week, Bucs fans. Remember that Atlanta led by I screwed that up. Have a good rest of your week, Bucs fans. Atlanta led by 25. We'll see you next time.